This is from Pete Prisco, CBSSports.com. Week 2 picks. He has the Jaguars defeating the Browns by a score of 24-19. Jaguars blew a fourth quarter lead, losing to the Dolphins, while Cleveland was mauled at home by Dallas. Deshaun Watson was awful. This is a tough ask to bounce back on the road against the Jaguars defense that slowed Miami. Look for Jacksonville to get into the win column. When you look at this game, what are some of the things that you think are keys? What do you need to see?
Last time the Browns saw Trevor Lawrence, it was at home, and they picked him off 3 times. We talked about Denzel Ward dropping those 2 picks that he could have had on Dak. I think you absolutely have to lean on both your secondary and your defense as a whole. That was a big part of their victory over the Jaguars last year, and I'd like to see it again. I think the Browns definitely did pressure Dak, but aside from early in that game, they didn't really get to him. I think this is really centers around saying this was an elite defense last year. This needs to be an elite defense again. Even if we set the expectation that the offense is going to take some time to find their groove, then the defense needs to show up. The special teams needs to show up. You can't allow a punt return touchdown. You've got to clean that up, and you've got to be the dominant defense that we know the talent can play up to. And I think we saw multiple games last year where the defense really did a lot of the heavy lifting, and we need to see that again, because I just don't think from week 1 to week 2 we're going to see a night and day offensive change. I think they definitely can make progress, but we're just in a situation right now where I think we can all admit it's going to take some time offensively.
Yeah, it's the standard football things. They had way too many penalties. You got to clean those up. You can't be this offense cannot be behind the sticks. They can't be first and 15, second and 13. They were that most of the first half, which is why they had 58 yards. I think they had more penalty yards than they had offensive yards at halftime. Can't turn the ball over. You have a dominant defense. You can't lose the turnover battle. That I busted Joe Flacco for that last year. I'll bust Deshaun. You cannot turn the ball over with this defense and put them on short fields. And then the other thing is special teams need to be a strength, and that special teams touchdown is what put the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it was just a total team failure. I think I know the quarterback gets a large portion of the blame, but you can look at every unit and every facet from coaching to all sides of the ball and say there were things that they could do better. And I think the brightest note I have is that we know there's a lot of talent on this team, and we know that you have the coach of the year and the assistant coach of the year from last year. I think these guys do know what they're doing. There's going to be clunkers sometime. I'm hoping that they can alleviate all of these fears by bouncing back in week 2.
Yeah, and to your point, that offense has to. It almost like they couldn't decide what the offense was going to be. You got to decide what the offense is, and then go and game plan accordingly. Don't try to be a little bit of everything.
Right. Build up Deshaun's confidence. Give him some layups. Maybe emphasize the run like you used to. There's pieces here that can hopefully get the quarterback in rhythm, and that needs to happen right now. It seems like Deshaun and maybe the offensive line just needs to be built up a bit with some success in front of them. So I imagine we are going to see a game plan that involves more running. I imagine we're going to see a game plan that involves more screens, more easier passes, things that just can help you build some confidence as you go through the game.
I want to see Deontay Foreman more as well. I was surprised how little they utilized. And I know they didn't run the ball a lot early, but we need to see more of him.
Well, you talked about the preseason, Adam. It was like Foreman was one of the offensive spotlights there for a little bit. He had a really nice receiving game, and I thought he looked he was bouncing off of tackles, and that was somebody that you said, okay, I can see the promise here. And I know we talked about it before about how when Deuce Staley was his running back coach, that was his most successful season, and it was honestly puzzling to me to not see Foreman at all.
Unless maybe he's a little more banged up than they let on.